Welcome everyone. On this channel, I use the AI to break down complex topics like politics without bias or emotion. So, Donald Trump has just been inaugurated and is officially the brand new president of the United States. Today, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to predict what his first 100 days will look like, what decisions he's going to make, how they're going to affect our lives, the United States, and the rest of the world. And what should we be ready for? So let's find out what it has to say. Now, I actually asked it to predict this a couple of months ago, but let's be real, so much has happened since then. Back then, we didn't even know his cabinet picks, his tariff plans, or those wild ideas about buying Greenland, amongst other things. So it'll be really interesting to see what ChatGPT thinks now, based on all of the current information as of today. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you enjoy these conversations with AI and want to see more, let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that you're into this kind of content, and it helps this video to reach even more people just like you. Alright, thanks in advance, and now let's jump right into it. And here we are. First, to make sure that ChatGPT is fully up to date on what's going on right now, I'm asking it to gather all of the current information and let me know when it's ready. And here we go. Great, now it's ready, so let's get started. I'm asking it to be clear, straightforward, and most importantly, absolutely 100% unbiased in its answers. No left or right-leaning takes, just precise analysis to make an honest prediction. And let me clear something up. This isn't a fortune teller. You can absolutely disagree with what it says. The main goal is to give it all the available information so that it can make an honest analysis of Trump's next moves. Just keep that in mind when we ask it to predict something. Now, I don't think that it's all that important to figure out the exact order of decisions, like what comes first or second and so on, but instead, I'm asking it to focus on what Trump could do overall in his first 100 days. So now, let's have it break down one topic that it chooses, and here it is. Trump plans to launch the largest mass deportation campaign the country has ever seen, targeting undocumented immigrants with criminal records, recent border crossers, and those with final deportation orders. He's promised to expand ICE, build more detention centers, and use local police as an extension of federal immigration enforcement. This isn't just about removing people, it's about making a bold statement and showing his base that he's delivering on promises. Trump talks about using expedited removals on a nationwide scale, cutting legal protections to fast-track deportations. He's also planning mass workplace raids in industries like agriculture and construction, both to remove workers and to send a message that undocumented immigrants aren't welcome. The goal is to create fear within immigrant communities, making it harder for people to stay or find stable employment. But deporting millions, as Trump claims, isn't realistic. ICE doesn't have the capacity, resources, or manpower to handle such an operation, even with additional funding. Trump absolutely knows these numbers won't be delivered. He knows that deporting millions in such a short time is logistically impossible. But for him, it's not about the numbers, it's about the image. The point of this campaign is to maintain his public image with his base, projecting strength, action, and leadership. The spectacle of mass arrests, detention buses, and tough rhetoric is what matters. It's designed to energize his supporters and reinforce their belief that he's fighting for them, even if the reality falls short of the promises. In the first 100 days, there will likely be a sharp increase in arrests, overcrowded detention centers, and headlines about families being torn apart. In the end, the goal isn't to fix immigration, it's to dominate the narrative, keep the spotlight on himself, and strengthen his hold on his base, regardless of whether the promises can be delivered. Alright, but let me ask one follow-up question. I just want ChatGPT to sum it all up and tell me what it thinks about this move, and here's the short answer. Mass deportations on the scale Trump promises won't happen. The logistics, legal challenges, and resistance from cities make it impossible to reach the numbers he's claiming. However, his actions would undoubtedly lead to fewer undocumented immigrants, especially those with criminal records in the U.S. In that sense, it's a partial success for achieving stricter immigration enforcement. The methods, though, are a different story. Raids, family separations, and expedited removals that bypass due process create fear and chaos. They destabilize communities and raise serious human rights concerns, making the approach heavy-handed and deeply flawed. But in the long-term perspective, people could look back and say that Trump partially tackled illegal immigration. The harsh methods will fade from memory for many, while the results, a reduction in undocumented populations, could remain as a legacy. Some numbers might be achieved, but at a significant social and moral cost. So then, long story short, ChatGPT thinks that Trump's goal to reduce undocumented immigration sounds good on paper, but the methods he plans to use are pretty bad. Got it. Oh, and by the way, I've got an entire video where ChatGPT breaks down the whole mass deportation plan in detail and even gives advice for people on how to protect themselves. So be sure to check it out if you haven't already. All right, we're done with immigration, so let's see what else Trump might do in the next 100 days, and here we go. Trump will move quickly to roll back energy and environmental policies, targeting regulations he sees as obstacles to economic growth and energy independence. He'll focus on lifting restrictions on oil and gas drilling, reviving coal production, and withdrawing from international climate agreements like the Paris Accord. Expect him to greenlight controversial projects like pipelines, expand offshore drilling, and open federal lands for fossil fuel extraction, all while framing these moves as job-creating wins for American workers. While this will boost fossil fuel industries in the short term, it will gut environmental protections, stall renewable energy progress, and worsen climate change. Legal challenges will follow, but Trump will use the backlash to rally his base, claiming he's defending American jobs against environmental elites. The results will be symbolic victories for traditional energy, but the long-term costs, environmental damage, and global isolation on climate policy will outweigh any short-term gains. Okay, nothing good here. I mean, it doesn't really matter how good something seems in the short term if it's just gonna make things worse in the long run, right? Alright, we're done with that, so now let's see what Trump's next move might be. Trump is likely to impose new trade tariffs in his early term, targeting imports from Mexico, Canada, and China. Reports suggest a 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada, with an additional 10% on imports from China. While this move will be framed as holding these countries accountable, whether for immigration policies, trade imbalances, or intellectual property theft, the reality is these tariffs won't hurt foreign governments or companies as much as they'll impact American businesses and consumers. When tariffs are applied, it's U.S. companies importing the goods that pay the price, not the foreign producers. Those costs will get passed directly to consumers in the form of higher prices. Everything from cars and electronics to groceries and basic household items will become more expensive. The added 10% on China will hit especially hard, given how much of the U.S. supply chain relies on Chinese goods. The ripple effects won't stop there. Countries hit with these tariffs will retaliate with their own, targeting U.S. exports. American farmers, manufacturers, and other exporters will suffer as their products become more expensive in global markets, reducing demand and profits. Trump will dismiss these consequences, pointing to any isolated success stories like a new factory opening or a slight increase in domestic steel production, while ignoring the widespread financial strain. The strategy is simple but flawed. It plays well politically, especially with his base, who see it as a tough stance against trade cheaters, but economically it's short-sighted. Rising costs for businesses and consumers will outweigh any short-term wins, and the economic disruption will fall squarely on the shoulders of everyday Americans. This isn't holding foreign powers accountable, it's taxing the American people to make a point. Alright, so ChatGPT thinks that tariffs would not be great for the economy, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe you don't agree, maybe you think that tariffs, mass deportations, and anything else we've talked about so far are actually good. I mean, seriously, different perspectives are welcome, especially if you have solid reasoning or evidence to back them up. So let us know if you see things differently. Oh, and by the way, I've got another great video about tariffs. Actually, even two of them. In one, ChatGPT breaks it all down, and in the other, Elon Musk's AI Grok gives its take on whether Trump's tariffs are good or bad for the United States. So, be sure to check those out when you're done here. It's super interesting because both of those AIs actually gave different answers. Alright, now back to the chat. Let's ask about Trump's next move, and here's the answer. Trump is likely to issue a wave of pardons early in his term, focusing on allies connected to him, especially those involved in the January 6th Capitol riot. He'll frame these pardons as fighting against a weaponized justice system, energizing his base while portraying himself as the defender. While he cannot pardon state-level convictions, he could still use his authority to shield close associates and allies from federal charges, undermining ongoing investigations and reinforcing his narrative of political persecution. The move will spark outrage, with critics calling it an abuse of power and a threat to the rule of law. Legal experts will debate the implications, particularly if he pushes controversial legal theories about a self-pardon. His base, however, will see it as a bold stand against an unfair system. While this strategy will deepen political divides and erode trust in the rule of law, Trump will prioritize loyalty and control over institutional integrity. For him, it's not about justice, it's about power. Okay, well, that all makes sense. Got it. Now I'm going to ask about Trump's foreign policy decisions and international relations, specifically his approach to China, Russia's war in Ukraine, and of course, the possibility of buying Greenland or taking control of the Panama Canal. But before we get into all of that, if you're enjoying this video, take a second to leave a like right now. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications so that you never miss a brand new video that I publish every single week. It seriously helps me out a whole lot, and it's the best way to show your support and let me know that you like it. Alright, now that we've got all of that covered and out of the way, let's move on to the next part. Now we're talking about Trump's foreign policy, and we'll begin with Russia and Ukraine. So, will Trump take any action on that within the first 100 days? Let's find out the answer. It's hard to believe that Trump could bring the war in Ukraine to an end within his first 100 days. However, he'll likely take steps to push toward a resolution that fits his transactional approach. Trump would almost certainly reject Ukraine's ambitions to join NATO in the near future, presenting it as a move to ease tensions with Russia. At the same time, he'd pressure Ukraine to accept territorial concessions, effectively forcing them to cede parts of their country to stop the war. To entice Russia, Trump could offer to lift or ease some of the harsher sanctions, using it as leverage to bring Putin to the table. He would frame this as a quick and bold solution, but it would ultimately reward Russian aggression and undermine international principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. The fundamental issue is that Ukraine's goals and Putin's ambitions are fundamentally incompatible and have no common ground. Ukraine wants to remain independent, build stronger ties with the West, and live in peace. Putin, on the other hand, seeks to erase Ukraine's sovereignty entirely, either by absorbing it into Russia or reducing it to a subservient state under Moscow's control. No negotiation or forced deal can reconcile these irreconcilable visions, and any attempt to impose such a solution would likely unravel, leaving the door open for further instability and aggression. Well, that actually sounds pretty realistic. And of course, I've got a special video on this topic as well. So if you're interested in ChatGPT's take on a peace plan for Ukraine, there should be a pop-up. Just click on it and check it out. Alright, now let's move on and talk about Greenland, the Panama Canal, China's influence on it, and what Trump might do about all of that in the next 100 days, and here's the answer. I don't believe Trump will make serious moves to acquire Greenland or assert control over the Panama Canal in his first 100 days, but he could float the ideas for their symbolic and political impact. Greenland, with its immense strategic value in the Arctic and its untapped resources, would be an attractive target for Trump's bold headline-driven leadership style. He could revisit his earlier proposal to buy Greenland and frame it as a way to counter Chinese and Russian influence in the region. China's investments in Greenland's mining sector and Arctic research, along with Russia's growing military presence in the Arctic, would provide Trump with a rationale for such a move. However, Denmark has already rejected the idea outright, and raising it again would only strain relations with NATO allies. While it might grab headlines, it's highly unlikely any real progress would be made in those first 100 days. The situation with Panama and the Canal is similar. While Trump might highlight the strategic importance of the Panama Canal and the need to counter Chinese influence, given China's investments in port facilities near the canal, he's unlikely to take meaningful steps to increase U.S. control in the first 100 days. The canal remains firmly under Panamanian control, and any move by Trump to assert more U.S. influence would provoke significant backlash from Panama and other countries in the region. Trump could use the issue as a talking point to energize his base, framing it as a bold move to protect American interests, but the complexities of the situation make significant action improbable within such a short time frame. Alright, well, the plans to take control of those regions actually sound pretty reasonable, don't you think? I mean, it's not just about leaving them alone because they won't stay that way. Anywhere the US pulls back, China or Russia will immediately step in to fill that gap. So maybe it does make sense. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But right now it's time for the final question, where I ask ChatGPT to sum it all up and give me its take on all the actions Trump might take during those 100 days. So go ahead, ChatGPT. Overall, it feels chaotic and short-sighted. While some moves might resonate with his base and grab attention, they come at the expense of long-term stability and meaningful progress. The focus seems to be more on creating division, dominating the narrative, and appearing decisive rather than addressing complex issues with thoughtful planning. This kind of approach risks straining international relationships and undermining institutions and leaving major challenges unresolved. It prioritizes quick impact over sustainable solutions, which I think is more harmful than productive in the long run. Well, alright, don't forget to let us know in the comments whether or not you agree with ChatGPT's prediction, and after that click on this video where ChatGPT breaks down Trump's plans for Greenland, Panama, and Canada in detail. I'm sure that you're going to enjoy that one as well. Thanks for watching, go ahead and click on that pop-up, and I'll see you there in just a moment.